And what we're going to do is just go through a bit of a background of me, because numbers was not necessarily my thing. So we're trying to look at how we use numbers in the classroom. So I'm Laura George. I'm also on Twitter, as well as at Miss Educate. And that's slightly important because a lot of the information that I'm going to talk through today, you can find on Twitter. So my journey started, I've been teaching about 10 years now. Before 2006, I really did not have much experience with Apple products or using them in the classroom. I had my own iPad, but I wasn't really using it in the classroom. In 2016, I joined a one-to-one iPad school, and obviously sort of threw myself into iPads. And in 2019, I joined the class of Apple Distinguished Educators because I realized the potential that Apple can sort of help pupils with as they go through their learning, especially with their creativity. But why numbers? Well, numbers was actually my weakest point. It was the one that I just didn't know much about. Keynote, I could see how that could be used in the classroom, things like clips, it was really good, but numbers was just that thing that I couldn't really understand as a teacher that doesn't really teach sort of maths in the way that I use the iPad through numbers, because the pupils were either too young to access it, or so I thought. I just didn't use numbers. So I set myself a challenge, and this was sparked by something else I was doing, which is the 50 Days of Keynote challenge, to learn a bit more about Keynote. And I decided, well, if it's my weakest thing, it's something I need to learn about. It's a challenge I need to do as well, very much like our pupils. So I started the 90 Days of Numbers challenge, which I've since just finished. It took a bit longer because I had other priorities come up suddenly lately with IT skills. So it was basically me challenging myself over 90 days to try and learn a bit more about numbers. And like everyone else, I started off thinking that it probably was just going to be a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of formula. But actually what I learned through either other people on Twitter, Apple Distinguished Educators, and through just sort of going and looking in the iBook store, was actually it can be really useful for a number of things. So we're going to talk through some of those today, and I'm going to show you how to use them and show you what numbers can do, hopefully, and hopefully inspire you to go and use it in your classroom as well. And hopefully it will help you. So like I said, it's not just about numbers, although it is fab for them as well. There are lots of other things that we can do with the numbers application. So these are just a few things popping up on the screen that I have created in my 90 Days of Numbers that we're going to talk through today. And you can see that I think probably in the past I thought of numbers as a very bland, very boring looking application, very grey and black. But actually, as I've gone through, I've learned that it's a much more colourful, a much more adaptable application. And there's so much that you can do for all different subjects. This is not just about maths. This is all different subjects that we can look at and we can use it for. And hopefully we'll gain a bit more of information, although we do have a few bits of maths in there as well. So first thing I'm going to talk through is some of the special boxes that you can use within the numbers application. So like I said, if you've got any comments about this, feel free to put them down the bottom and I'll try and answer them. But what we'll do is we'll go through looking at the example that I've created, and then I'll show you how to do it. So the first thing that numbers is very, very good for is making the cells that you can have in numbers do different things than maybe what a lot of people thought you could potentially do with them. So the first thing I found was that numbers is very good for tick boxes and star rating boxes as well. I'm going to just show you through a couple of those on the actual numbers app. So if we zoom back to the beginning, here we go. Okay, so tick boxes as a teacher are really useful because they're really easy ways of showing if something is correct or something's not correct. So a tick box is literally what it says. You click on it, it ticks, you click on it, it unticks. And these are really, really easy to create as well. It's as simple as highlighting. So when you start a spreadsheet in numbers, this is the sort of thing you'll get. You'll get this sort of box up. And then once you click on it, you can highlight it. Once you've highlighted it, if you go up to the little paintbrush at the top, you've got lots of options that you can do with it. So we can change things in a table. You might know about this, and change the cells and what they look like, so the background colors. But it's a format tool that we're really going to be thinking about for this one. And this is where all of the things that we're talking about right now are. So to get a tick box, it's as simple as clicking on the tick box icon, and it turns your cells into tick boxes. And then you can use them. You can go back to automatic numbers, sorry, if you want to, or other things, text, but we're going to be, like I say, looking at those tick boxes. So as soon as you put those on, It's as simple as clicking on them and they tick. So in this case, we can see if this sum is right or wrong. So it's a really good way of either pupils self-marking or a teacher quickly going through and marking it as well. So that's the first specialty box that we can use with the format tool at the top by clicking on a cell. But there are also some quite funky ones, and these are quite different to what you might see in other applications that are spreadsheet applications. We also have the star rating. So the way I thought this could be used was for something like a class book review, or for lessons, or even if a pupil is trying to work out how well they've done, they can sort of give themselves a star rating on an action as well. And it's exactly the same way that we did the tick boxes, but instead we're going to choose star ratings. So we can highlight all of the cells we want in one go. Once again, go up to the little paintbrush at the top, and instead of doing the tick box, we do the star rating. And what it gives you originally is none of the stars are there, but as soon as you click on one of the little circles, it gives us a star rating. So it's a really nice little added feature that's quite funky for doing lots and lots of different ways of reviewing things. So already we can see that numbers might be a lot more versatile than what we originally thought it might be. And that is just through using the cells themselves, by just formatting the cells in a certain way to do something that we want it to. Again, if you've got any comments on that, make sure you're putting them down in the comment box, and then I will try and answer those as well. So there are quite a few number of different specialty boxes that I could talk you through, and I could probably spend a whole half an hour on that. But I'm just going to talk you through one other for now, and then I'll go on to some other things that numbers is really good at as well. So the stepper scale is a very good one as well. And this basically means that an item will move up in certain increments. So for example, I might tell my stepper scale that I'll show you in a minute that I want to go up by increments of 2 or increments of 3. And I was trying to think how this would be useful in the classroom, and I thought, well, times tables, that's really good. If we're starting with a certain times table, it's really good to be able to see an increment going up and helping the pupils get to know the increments in that times table, so the 3 times table or the 5 times table, for example. So once again, I'll show you how that looks actually within the numbers spreadsheet. So again, all I've done is I've typed in the sum, and then if I click on this cell, you can see I get a little up and down arrow on the side. Now all you need to do is just click on those and it will go up and down, and this one is going up by increments of 1, so that's what you might expect a stepper scale to go up by. But for this one, I've changed it. I've actually made the increments go up by 2 because I'm doing a 2 times table. It's going up by 2. So again, this is really good for those pupils who they might be struggling with the 2 times table and remembering what's in the 2 times table. So it's a really helpful way of them finding or minimizing a number of answers that they could choose. Exactly the same with the 3 times. So again, in order to do that, we're using that paintbrush at the top. We're using exactly the same sort of access, the format button at the top, but this time we're using the stepper one. Now you can't just, well, you could just press on stepper, but if you want to change the increments that I've just shown you, you need to click on the little I button to the side, and this will give you a few more options. So firstly, your minimum value, you might want to set to 0 because you might want them to start at the bottom. You might not worry about having a maximum value unless you really want to crop it down to what they would be going up to as their top. But it's the increment one that we really want to be concerned by. So we might say we want to go up in increments of 6. And once we've done that, again, we get that stepper button and it would then go up in increments of 6. So it's just a few more things that are hidden in those settings for numbers that can be really useful for us to be able to help our pupils as they go through. So these were the first things that I started to find out about the numbers application, that actually you could change the cell backgrounds and what they can do. But then I went on and I wanted to find out more of what numbers could do and how it could be used. And probably the most useful thing I found about numbers is it doesn't have to be about numbers at all. It could be that you actually remove the whole area for your cells that you would normally use in numbers, and you actually give yourself a blank sheet. And that was probably the most eye-opening thing, because a lot of the spreadsheet applications don't really give you this option. I think it's something really special and unique to Apple that's done really well. So once again, if I show you this I'll get a new spreadsheet page up in a minute. So this is a completely blank sheet with no cells in it, with no tables in it, and therefore we can use it in lots and lots of different ways. And I'm going to come back to this a bit later, but it's quite simple. If we just add a new sheet, that's what it looks like. That's what we're automatically given when we're in Apple, a new spreadsheet. And it's just a case of clicking on the table and deleting it. And then you've got this whole blank page. And this has led me to a lot of the things that you're going to see me talking through now, the ability to remove myself from that table. So after I found out that I could do that in my 90 days numbers, I started to think about how I could use these spaces in lots of different ways. And I started to realize what you could also add in. So not only is numbers good for adding in data, like we've just seen, it's also good for adding in lots of other things. And I've tried to use it in some different ways to be able to see that. And again, helping different pupils from different subjects, from different backgrounds, from different year groups. So once I had this clean space, I started to think what I could add in, or I started to use the tables in a slightly different way. So one thing that you can also do with numbers that's really good is you can add in things. So rather than going to the paintbrush at the top, we go to the little plus symbol. And we can add in lots of things here. We can add in more tables, we can add in charts, which you'd expect to see, but you can also add in shapes. And this is a really interesting one that we want to look at. We can add in photos, videos, we can use a camera to take a picture, or we could record an audio. And this feature I find really interesting and exciting. As you can see, I've used it here because you can then add in spelling tests. So if we come, so we could easily record something and just sort of leave it in there, except for I can't because I'm recording with you. But what we could do is click on these and they will play the word. So you can't hear it because I think because I'm talking through the microphone, but that will play the word, and then the pupils can write down the word. So if they've got an Apple Pencil, they could write it down. They could type it in, but sometimes it would autocorrect, so that's a bit of a problem. And then they can also add on their corrections. Not only that, but I also thought, well, we can add in phonics tables as well. So I've made sort of my own virtual phonics tables. And again, you won't be able to hear it because of the microphone not being used, but I'll add this file so that you could download it if that's useful. But this also allows pupils either make their own audio. So it could be that they add their own audio in, and also they could hear their own sounds. So it would be really useful to add in other bits and pieces of their own sounds. So like I said, it's just about using different ways of using the numbers spreadsheet that will be really helpful for them. And I also thought about naming an instrument that I thought would be really useful as well for music lessons, where you could play the sound of a music instrument and then do that. So also, when I took out lots of different items, I found that you could actually hear the use it to add in pictures as well. So here you can see that I decided to think about food technology, and that actually the pizza making recipe could be put into numbers really, really nicely. So I also decided that numbers is not just really good for audio, but also good for images as well. So we can combine images, and we can combine tables, and we can combine tick boxes to make one really useful activity for our pupils, where they can actually see what they're doing, they can self-track themselves, and then they can add in evidence of what they have found out in the end. So this is just what I created for maybe a food technology lesson. And it basically took down using the tick boxes that I showed at the beginning and tables, so they can tick off when they've got their ingredients, and they can tick off as they go through the different recipes as well. But not only that, it's really useful to add in pictures, but sometimes pupils don't know where to add in pictures, or they might not know sort of what you want in different places. So something that can be used across all of the Apple products are something called placeholders. And this was something new to me not that long ago, and I thought it's one of those things that you either know or you don't know, but they're so useful once you know about them. So if I just show you what a placeholder is, a placeholder basically means you can see where it says your image here, and you can see a little plus button down the bottom. And rather than going up the top to try and add in a picture and then fiddle around with it and make it the right size, we can click on the little plus button and it will take us straight through to our albums or our take photo. So you could take a picture right from there. And this is such a useful thing, especially for younger children, to be able to use. And it's as simple as adding in a picture yourself. So for example, if I decided I want that picture there, and I want them to show that they are having a picture of them decorating the pizza, I add in the image, and it does have to be a photo or an image from your collection, as far as I'm aware. You can't use it with the pre-added shapes, as far as I'm aware, but I'd happily be corrected. And once you've clicked on it, again, we're going to use that paintbrush tool at the top. And if you are clicked on the image and go to image in the middle, it's literally as easy as clicking the set as placeholder button, and it makes it a placeholder. It makes it holding, obviously, that place of where you want the image to go. So again, we're starting now to find out that numbers is not just about tables, it's about audio, and it's about imagery, and it's about helping pupils organize their own work. It's probably worth me putting at this point as well, if we just look at the top, the fact that the sheets are there also help us to organize our own work. And a lot of what I did was thinking about how digital booklets could be made, or exercise books could be made using the sheets at the top really easily for pupils as well. So hopefully we've got quite a few different ideas now of what we can do, but we've still got a few more to go. So hang with me. Again, if you've got any comments, put them in the bottom and I'll try and answer them as we go through. So I think when I started looking at numbers, a lot of people said to me they want, because I was sharing it on Twitter, a lot of people said to me, if I was asking for suggestions, they wanted to know about a lot of the sort of things that spreadsheets could do that they didn't understand and that they seemed really complicated. And a lot of that was to do with something called conditional highlighting. And conditional highlighting can be a lifesaver to teachers because it can help us self-mark. It can give a pupil the ability to find out the correct answer without any input from teachers. And then teachers can also easily look down. But not only that, it can also be a bit of fun. So I'm going to show you two things on the spreadsheets that hopefully will give you an indication of those. So one's quite what you'd expect it to be, and I'm hoping the other one is something that you might not expect it to be. So this was just a quite simple work out the fractions task that can be done with pupils. And so it was a fraction workout sort of sheet, interactive sheet. So down the side, we see that we've got an example of lots of names and lots of colour counters that they've pulled out of a bag. And so the idea was that the pupils had to answer questions based on this information. So for example, at the top it says, what is the total number of red counters pulled out? Now, if you type in any other number, so let's say we type in 9, you'll notice the background has changed colour. It's not until I put the correct number in that it gives us a green background. And this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the ability to self-mark. It won't turn green unless you put the correct colour in there. And again, this is what a lot of people were sort of really wanted to know how to do. And it's so easy once you know how to do it. So the answer to what was the total number of blue counters pulled out is 3. So we want that cell to change as soon as we put 3 in it. So once again, we click on it and we're going back to that paintbrush at the top, but we're going to change the title section now. We're going to go into cell. And I think Numbers does this really well because it's literally just highlighted down the bottom what you need to click on. And it just says add conditional highlighting. Now we get lots of options here and it can be quite confusing to know exactly what to do. I find the easiest thing to do is just to stick with text. Even if I'm working with numbers, I work with text because it just means it's easier. I don't have to worry about, am I doing a number, am I doing text? It's just easier for me to remember. But you can do it with lots of different activities. So you could search around this yourself. So what I'm basically saying is if the text is, and then so if the text is 3, then I want the cell to do something. And in this case, it gives us loads of sort of fabricated options. And all I want it to do is give me a green fill. So basically what this is saying, if the text in the box is 3, it's going to fill it in green for me. So I then click OK. We now see that I've got a conditional highlighting. We call it a rule down the bottom. So once again, if I put in other numbers, nothing's going to change too much. But as soon as I put in 3, it goes green. So it's an amazing way to self-mark. If you set it up and send it out to pupils, you've got your marking done right there for you. So a fraction of work at the beginning to set it up saves hopefully a mass amount of stuff at the end. And this could be done for a written answer. It could be done for anything really, is whatever you can put in a cell. In fact, you can even do it with emojis. I haven't done the example here, but you can put an emoji in, and if it's the right emoji, it will change color as well. So it's pretty versatile. But then I thought, well, what else can we use this for? Let's use it for something else as well. And so I thought, what's a bit more fun? And people love pixel drawings, and cells that you get on numbers are brilliant for pixel drawings because we can get little tiny boxes. So what I started having fun with was, well, what if I conditional highlight the boxes so that if I put in a certain color, they change color. So I'll just show you how that works. So for example, if I put the text is, and this time choose purple, and then now you can add custom styles in yourself as well, so you don't have to stick with the options they give you. So let's find a fill color that's purple. Let's go back and click done. You will now see wherever I've written purple, it's gone purple. So they can make pixelated drawings just by putting words in the boxes, and they can come up with loads of drawings. And this is really good for younger children practicing. I suppose it's a form of coding as well, but for younger children practicing their colours and lots of bits and pieces like this. So again, we're hopefully seeing how numbers can be versatile, but it can also be a bit more fun if we really think about it in different formats. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about formula, mainly because it's one of those things, it can be quite hard to get your head around, but obviously it's important to know that numbers can do formulas because, again, the possibilities are endless. The amount of things you can do with a formula are amazing, and I go through loads of them on my 90 Days of Numbers. I'll tell you how to get to that. For example, it does things like automatically changing a number to a Roman numeral, or randomizing things for you. So there's loads of different things that you can do. So I'll show you this on the numbers because I think it's struggling on the keynote. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a formula. So what we're looking at is we've got here basically a starting number and a starting box. Now this is just one cell by one cell. And then what I've got is you can't see it because I've hidden it all behind drawings. So this is really fun things you can do as well. You can kind of hide your tables if you go into the formatting options and get rid of the ability to see the cell borders and then draw things over the top using the basic patterns and maybe your Apple Pencil if you've got one. So I've made sort of a little wormhole, but it's a maths task. So it looks different, but it's a really simple maths task. So I've got a box at the top here. And then I've got a box at the bottom here, exactly the same. It's one cell by one cell. And down each of these little wormholes, there are some different maths activities that are going to happen to this number. So if you double click on a cell, you get this formula bar up at the bottom. Now, this might be quite confusing to look at, which is why I'm not going to go into much detail now, but I just want to show you what can happen. So what this is basically saying is it says star A. Now, star A is this box at the top, because I've called it star and it's an A column. And then I said, whatever number's in there, it's going to times by 3, times by 2, times by 3, minus 4, plus 5. And that's all the things I've got in that little wormhole. And then you've got an answer down the bottom. So whatever number I put in the top, it's going to do all those things and change the number in the bottom. And this can be really fun for pupils to see what happens to numbers, and they can check it themselves if it's correct. And again, it's a bit like coding, so they could make their own version of this and put in lots of different numbers and sums that go down. And that can be really fun for them as well. So formulas are really useful for doing lots of different things. This is another example that I use. So I love escape rooms. It's one of my fun things outside of work and inside of work. So I try and bring it into the classroom as much as possible. But again, I wanted to digitalize it. So I had some answers up here. So this is one for a religious studies lesson. You can see that you actually can use emojis in your cells. But what you get down the bottom here is you've got a key code down the bottom. And basically, if you type in the correct word, instead of doing a conditional formatting, what I've instead done is said, well, if that is the correct answer, it does something to this cell here. So we've used something called the if function. So if the question in this box up here, answer the question based on the video below, C2, because this is C2 in that answer the question based on the video below bit at the top, then the bottom cell down here is going to equal 4. If that equals 4, sorry, then the other box is going to have an L in it. Now, this is quite complex, but I just, again, I'm not going to go into detail about this. And you can, I'm quite happy if people want to ask comments about where to find how to do this on YouTube, because I've made YouTube videos to help you. But again, I just want you to show you how versatile numbers can be. So that's a lot of the things that I found out that you can do with numbers that were probably unique to me and that I didn't know about. But what I also wanted to show you is how it can be used in remote learning as well, because obviously that's very important for us at the moment. And collaboration across either between pupils in different houses, or it could be pupils in different parts of the world, is massively important, whether we're in remote learning or not. So the only other thing I wanted to talk people through today was some examples of collaboration. So at the top of a number spreadsheet, or it could be a Pages document or a Keynote, you have the little person with the little tick next to it. So this is the ability to collaborate. Now you'll notice that I've already done this because I wanted to be able to show you what it could do. But quite simply in a new sheet, and I might show you that in a second in a new sheet, if you click on that, you get the option to collaborate with other people. Now, it gives you the option to share this spreadsheet across a message or a Dropbox or an email or on Twitter. And basically, it allows you to share this spreadsheet, but not just share it, but to also collaborate with it. And again, this is really useful because if we were talking about, for example, if we go back to the mind mapping, so I was talking about the mind mapping and getting rid of the anywhere that you could see stuff. Hopefully it's going to work. So we talked about how you can get rid of the pages and everything, but not only that, it's really good for being able to just see lots of different things happening in one go. So in fact, I'm not going to be able to do it with the mind map one, so I'll just do it with the chess one that I was going to show you, because that's playing up. Hopefully this will work. So basically, you can invite people to be able to collaborate on here. And again, I'm hoping this will work because I'm using my son's iPad to help me do it. So maybe it won't work now. Okay. I'll talk to you about it and it might work in a second because it's opening. But basically, this gives you the opportunity for 2 people to be working on one numbers sheet in one go. And this is really good because I thought, well, okay, that's really good for collaboration, like mind maps, where people could both be adding to it at the same time. But what it's also good for is playing games. So you could be having a virtual chess game between 2 people. So here, all I've done is made a table and color-coded the cells, different colors, so it looks like a chess piece. I've downloaded images of the little chess pieces. And basically what I could do is I could be moving my chess pieces across the board, and then the other person who's collaborating would be able to move the pieces across it as well. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you, unfortunately, because my son's iPad internet is having its fun today, so it's given up. So but they would move theirs and I would see the movement live, so we could actually be playing a live game of chess. Not only that, there's other games that we could play it with as well. So for example, I stole an idea of Twitter, and Battleships was another game that I thought you could do this with. So using conditional formatting, I've done a lot of stuff with the board game for this. But there is basically endless possibilities with numbers. And I hope I've just opened the door to just a few of the examples. The only other thing I would say, and I don't know if the Keynote is going to work, but we'll have a look, is if you want to know more about this, probably the best place to do it is my 90 Days of Numbers. So you can search for that on YouTube if you just type in 90 Days of Numbers. What you will get up is lots of my videos, and obviously there are 90 days of them now. So there are 90 different things that you can do with numbers, and I'm hoping that that will help everyone. It's also available on Twitter, so you can see what they look like. This is the kind of thing that you would see. So this is a Formula One. This is quite a complex one. Hopefully you'll see me in the picture talking in some of them I don't. It just depends how I was feeling that day. But hopefully that has been really helpful. If you've got any further comments, obviously I'm happy to answer those at any time. But all I would like people to know really is that numbers is just really, really